Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time on Doctor Who Classic, we had the Gunfighters. What was that one about?
Well, that was actually a lot of fun, especially coming off of, the Ark and the Dalek story and all the rest of that nonsense. It was silly, but the Doctor and Stephen and Dodo land in Tombstone, Arizona in the late 1800s and get involved in the shootout between the Clanton gang and Wyatt Earp and his brother and Doc Holliday. Again, there were some annoying bits to it, and a lot of it was very, very silly. But overall, very, very enjoyable. It's probably one of my favorites that we've seen in quite a long time.
Yeah, especially, I think you meant to say the Celestial Toymaker, not the Ark.
Oh, well, yeah.
The Ark was all right, all around. The Celestial Toymaker was not, so. And slightly speaking of, we're back in Recon Town today.
Oh boy.
We have a 100% missing episode today. Yeah, so there's that. Let's see, what else is there to say? I don't remember if there was any lead into this.
Yeah, there was something because we commented on the fact that it looked like they'd gone back to the cavemen from the very first unearthly child.
Yeah, about
serial.
They saw something on the scanner, I guess. So yeah, I will be curious to see what we are doing here. Also, this is just an interesting thing that I must say that so some of you guys may have noticed. You haven't noticed because the episodes aren't up for you yet. But the past at least one, maybe two episodes, depending on how things go, videos may have gone up in redirects, where I have to take the reaction out of the video, like we did with the Star Trek Picard reactions. I know I had to do that with the Celestial Toymaker, but as of recording this, I haven't worked on the Gunfighters yet, so I don't know if that had to happen there. But from what I can tell, copyright might be getting a little bit more strict on YouTube. I'm not really sure, but I've been having trouble with my Breaking Bad videos and my modern Doctor Who videos. And the Celestial Toymaker, as soon as it was uploaded, it was just completely blocked. And Doctor Who Classic pretty much never gets blocked, and also Recons never get blocked, so it seems weird that they could, block a video to an episode that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, that might be happening. I don't know. It's sort of weird what's going on. No one's really sure, and this is YouTube, so no one's ever going to be sure. But if it's the case that this video needs to be put in a highlight, all that means is what you got to do to watch our reaction to this episode is head down in the description or to the pinned comment. There will be a link there that will take you over to the reaction. You can watch it just like a normal reaction, and when you're done with that, you can pop right back over here to this video for the discussion. However, it's entirely possible that that's not going to be the case, and the reaction will start in about 5 seconds anyway. So let's go ahead and play copyright roulette and get into this episode of Doctor Who Classic. Here we go.
It's a new writer.
Well.
You actually said just episode 1. Don't they usually have a name?
Yeah.
Other than Savages, I mean.
Yeah.
I guess we should read those out loud so that people watching could know what we're looking at.
It's just as I thought.
I mean, they can see
Yes,
it, but
I
it would be
think
pretty
my
small
young
on the
friends are
screen.
in for quite a surprise.
As he moves off, the two figures watch him. One of them picks up a large wooden club.
That does at least make it a bit more interesting.
He was like a savage from the Stone Age.
The doctor was wrong. Not in the future at all. We must be back at the beginning of it.
It would be hilarious if these were the same cavemen and they recognized them.
Satisfied with his readings?
Our space observers had their own name for you.
Oh, and what might that be?
You are known to us as the traveller from beyond time.
I see, and how would you expect me here and now?
The elders of our city have been plotting the course of your space-time shift for many light years. They estimated your arrival some time ago. Captain Adal wishes to take you to the elders of our city.
Do you think they were waiting for the monk instead?
Oh,
And they
yes,
found the
of course.
doctor?
Yes,
Stephen!
What is it?
There is something up there.
As they're about to move off, a spear thuds into the ground near their feet.
Yeah.
What do I look like, my dear?
Oh, you're really with it now, Doctor.
Yes, with what, my dear? What is this place?
We have learned how to transfer the energy of life directly to ourselves. We can tap it at its source. It is as though we were able to recharge ourselves with life's vital force.
Interesting. That
Exor still has Nanina trapped in the beam of light, so they're essentially life force vampires.
Huh.
As they move through the scrubland, Chal emerges from hiding. Eyes glazed and hands outstretched, the savage is heading straight for Dodo. Now, hang on here just a second. Again, I recognize Godfrey, you and so the two old guys out in the wilderness looked familiar. You know, I mentioned one of the guys last week in the Gunfighters. I said he looked like somebody from a James Bond film. Apparently he has done several of the James Bond films. You know, he's always just slightly more than an extra. But I also learned he was in Star Wars. He was one of the fighter pilots. Again, very recognizable British character actors.
well,
I saw them, you know, for 3 years, and then when they show up later on, I'm just like, oh yeah, I recognize that face.
now it's interesting at the end there. It didn't say next episode, glazed over zombies or whatever. I don't know, but it just didn't have an episode title. So I'm wondering if this is when they drop those, because we know at some point. At the very least, in the Third Doctor's era, they just drop episode titles and it's just stories. But I don't remember if that was in the Second Doctor's era or not. So yeah. Now, at first, when they were talking about we take life force energy and we sort of heal ourselves up, I was thinking okay, is this supposed to be the first hints at regeneration? But you did bring up the fact that they could sort of be like vampires, the sort of Doctor Who vampires, which we've had in other stories. So yeah, it could be something like that, or at least like an artificial sort of vampire. Yeah. So, but that would be interesting if this is the first hints at regeneration, because I mean we're really close to it now. Yeah. So it's entirely possible, and since they know about the Doctor, and presumably even though I guess they would know about his people. Perhaps this is their way of artificially regenerating themselves, whereas the Doctor can just do it more naturally. Yeah. So, I don't know. That might be interesting.
Yeah. But again, this is a very popular sci-fi theme, taken to the extreme in the mid to late '60s with a film called Soylent Green. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Or do you know about it? Have you heard?
All I've heard is that they're people.
Yes.
I just hear people yell that in a video. I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, it's basically the Earth has reached the point where it's being overpopulated, and of course we've literally destroyed all the farmland and all the food's gone. But there's this worldwide conglomeration called Soylent Green.
I'm seeing where this is going.
Where they're providing food, and it all comes back at the very end. Charlton Heston is the protagonist, and when he realizes what's happening, it's that Jonathan Swift thing from the late 1700s, early 1800s, where we should harvest the lower class people, the people who don't have any real skills or anything like that, and use them to feed the upper classes. So that's why you always see that Soylent Green is people. Yeah, all right.
And because I always if someone references it, I think they're always yelling when they say that. And it's and with you saying Charlton Heston, it's yeah, that makes sense. That sounds like a line that he would yell. So
that and get your hands off of me, you damn dirty ape.
Yeah. They blew it all up. So okay.
So again, very interesting though. This idea that you have an advanced civilization that literally is based on not quite the homicide of its people, but literally stealing everything from them.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes if you want to, specifically you're talking about us here in Oklahoma, that goes to the Holocaust, the American Holocaust of the Europeans coming in, first the Spanish and then later the English, especially the French not quite so much, and then just taking the land and the livelihoods of the indigenous peoples here in the Caribbean and South America, and then finally in North America. So I don't know that that's where this is going, but that's certainly the setup.
I mean, they are called savages in this episode.
Yeah.
Which, that's the thing, when it was like, oh, all right, this episode is called The Savages. The first thing I went to is like, okay, this is the 1960s. Maybe we might be going back to the Native Americans here and calling them savages. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
So, yeah. And this is at least an interesting one to have in recons, like, because obviously there are episodes like Toymaker or something where it's like, this is really unfortunate even in a recon, but it's like this one is at least interesting enough you can follow it.
Yeah, and I will say the pace is somewhat slow, and again, I don't think that's the director's fault.
Yeah.
It's one of those where obviously they said, here, write this story in 4 parts, and the guy's going, here, let's let Dodo walk down the corridor for 35-40 seconds because there's nothing else for us to do.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm sure visually it would probably build up a lot better suspense, but it's just it could be tightened up, and we're just in the first episode and we already know it could be tightened up.
Yeah.
Figure with a primitive man lumbers towards Dodo. Yeah, I noticed this was just episode 2.
Yeah. They may have dropped episode names.
Now, we didn't say before, but does it literally rob them of their age? I mean, does it make them older? Or does it just weaken them, and then it's kind of like, drawing blood transfusions out of them?
Yeah.
Because we didn't really see that in the first episode. Intrigued by the noises, Dodo edges closer to the laboratory.
Sapping them of their age would also slightly make sense, if only for the old age makeup they have on some of those savages.
Yeah.
Like, maybe those are the ones that have sort of recuperated over a few years, but they're still older.
I'm sure the child won't come to any harm while she's here.
No, she cannot leave the city.
If I know that young lady, she's well enough to look after herself. Now, come along, please. Let's finish the conversation. Doctor! Chit.
I mean, she held Doc Holliday at gunpoint. She can probably take care of herself.
But the guard's coming for us.
Do not be afraid. After all, this is a free state, isn't it? And we are all equal here. They cannot harm us.
In the stills, that helmet looks really silly. They're led away in the beam of light.
Equality.
You intend to return to the TARDIS, Doctor?
Yes, just for the moment, but I won't be long.
I'll come with you.
Oh, splendid, my boy. Thank you. I need someone to help me carry a few things.
I'll send one of my guards with you.
No, thank you. That won't be necessary. Thank you indeed. Well, come along, my dear. We don't want to lose you again, do we?
Dr. Stephen and Dodo exit.
It'd be hilarious if they just tried to bail.
What you saw
Just get in the
meant
TARDIS
nothing
and
to me.
leave.
One of the savages, I shouldn't let him worry you. He's probably shamming. He should be back on the reserve. Come on, you lazy animal. Get up, move. Get back to your sector.
What are you doing, fellow?
The
Leave the man
reserve,
alone, he'll probably die.
like reservation.
Come on, you move. I insist that you leave him alone.
Where's the doctor?
Doctor! Doctor!
Now what do we do?
It really is just
Give him the
Steven's
cap.
job, is to just yell for
About the
people.
doctor.
Oh, you know what he's like. He'll be...
Dodo kneels down beside the man and gives him a capsule.
Give him another one.
Yes, the first one seems to have done him good.
Dodo gives the man another capsule.
You don't want to overdose him.
Must put an end to this inhuman practice.
You leave me no choice. Take him away, Captain. And tell Center that we have an emergency. I shall be sending him special instructions.
Ito leads the doctor away.
You're going to try to take his life force energy? They might be at it a while.
We must do something.
It's going to be a classic transference. This is our greatest success. 1.5, 0. 26. 2.06. 28, 0. 3.00. 3.5, 0.
Hang on just a second again. Let it go just a bit more.
By the way, this is a good time to point out. Someone has said that after Hartnell in the credits, the actors are listed in order of appearance, which is why sometimes Steven is, billed second, sometimes it's Dodo, and sometimes there's like 20 people before you get to the two of them.
Yeah, I did. I remember reading that comment.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense now. Why couldn't we figure that out?
Yeah, like the only one that's definite is Hartnell because he's the lead actor. So,
here's a little thought on one of the names there. The leader is Jano or Jano. I wonder if that was a deliberate take on the Roman Janus, the god who ends the old year and starts the new year because he's two-faced. So here you have a guy who is pretending to be this sophisticated guy when actually he's the savage, he's the barbarian.
Could be. I mean, things are starting to get a little on the nose here with this episode, especially with the savages. You caught, what was the one line about
the reserve?
The reserve.
Yeah, put it back on the reserve.
Yeah, so it's getting a little on the nose, but that's all right. It's not like Doctor Who hasn't done that before.
And well, also there was another thing though. This does have a slight hint of what the Nazis were doing in World War II. Dr. Mengele doing his experiments on people, but again, that's just a very faint echo because really it does look to be more about the Native Americans, simply the wiping out of indigenous people, not just in North America, but in South America and Asia and Australia and all the other places, Africa. So it'd be interesting to see where this goes. Now this episode a lot faster paced than the first one. Much less of the, here's a guy stumbling down a corridor for 20 seconds and Dodo reacting to it. So again, looking forward to seeing what's happening next.
Yeah. Also, for everyone playing the reaction drinking game, be sure you take a shot for that mention of World War II. So, always be sure you're playing his drinking game because my drinking game of saying interesting.
Oh Lord,
you probably died 2 years ago. Yeah. So,
but you'd be well pickled.
Yeah. It's also interesting that this season. Okay, but this season in particular, I feel like the Doctor is it's been very brutal for the Doctor this season. Like, so many things have happened to where it's like, yeah, no wonder he regenerates after all this.
And yeah, he's been somewhat passive the first two seasons, and now he's getting way more active.
Yeah.
Vitality's dropping. Watch it carefully. I just cut out at 25. Don't produce any lower, or it may not recover.
I hope this one scientist guy turns out to be some sort of an ally, because he didn't like the fact that he had to take the Doctor's energy.
The guards would follow and then our last refuge would be gone. They have helped us. We must help them. No! They are not our people. They must not be allowed in the cage. I am the leader. And I say they may go. Very well.
It's interesting. Normally we have just like two different opinions on what to do with the companions. I like that there's three different opinions this time.
As time passes, we are less able to do such things. Most of our talents are being taken from us. Only our faith remains, and that they will never take.
Again, Aztecs and Mayas and Olmecs. Pueblo people in North America. In the main cave, X-Force is looking along the various tunnels that lead off in different directions.
Yeah, Steven should just punch him.
I was going to say that we'll pick up a rock and beat his brains out.
And then, Dodo will grab the light gun and hold him hostage. Just like Doc Holliday.
Opening! Get back!
Verify the savage.
Does the beam reflect? How do you mean? If the light from the gun reflects, does it still work? Yes, I see it from the water on the lake. Give me that mirror.
Dodo passes Stephen the hand mirror that was given to her by Jano.
That's clever.
As X-Force fires his gun, Stephen reflects the beam back towards him. X-Force freezes and drops his gun.
It's impossible.
It is improbable.
Not have angered him.
Although that's very Medusa and what was his name? the Greek mythology, the kid who reflected Medusa and cut her head off.
All right, tie him up, make him a prisoner. You can
Perseus.
destroy the people of the city.
What's all the fuss about? I'm quite all right. The trouble with you people on this planet is that you
What do
don't
you mean,
understand.
Jailer? You belong to this planet. You're one of us. Yes. Yes, of course. I'm afraid I'm not quite myself. I
Made him like the Doctor.
You must rest, Jailer.
So maybe
I
now
give you
he'll see
instructions that you're not to be
that
disturbed.
what they're doing is wrong.
After me, these people would be too terrified to break in.
Surely they should have some security.
Maybe they thought one guard was enough. They're not going to give us much trouble.
Ooh,
Huh.
3 seconds of actual motion.
Stopping.
The Doctor seems oblivious to the chaos around him.
Well, there was at least in that episode the development of Jano being possessed or influenced by the Doctor's energy.
Yeah.
But other than that, not a whole lot happened in that one.
Now,
So
I was kind of thinking when Jano first came out that this was the reverse of the whole smallpox thing, because we always talk about how 90% of the Native American deaths were from European diseases, but most history classes also fail to mention that there were some North American diseases that the Europeans weren't immune to. Particularly things like dysentery and well, they call it Montezuma's Revenge. But also there were a few what today we would call STDs. So I was kind of hoping that they would do something that instead of the super race of people here, exterminating or taking the life forces of the natives, that's something that the Doctor and Stephen and Dodo brought in, kind of like in the Ark, that they have some kind of cold virus or something that will spread amongst the super people.
yeah,
But we still have an episode to go, so that may still happen.
I mean, it might happen, but I could see that just being from the Doctor's energy specifically, and that's what's happened to Jano.
Yeah.
So
Why would I do that? You seem to forget that I'm in charge here. Why would I do anything to help our enemies?
You know it, but if you didn't do it...
Kindly remember to whom you are speaking. I am...
Jano hesitates, uncertain of what to say. Wonder if that's
Get back to your work.
Hartnell's voice or him imitating
Want
Hartnell.
us to go after them?
I think it's him imitating Hartnell.
Will they recover? Yes, but it takes time.
Where can we hide him, Charles?
The place is safe, but it's best to take him to the caves.
Take him back to the
They're right behind us.
TARDIS.
Charles,
You
you're
have
going
the
to get
key.
the doctor to the
Yeah,
caves.
that's true.
I'll try and hold them back.
What can you do?
Ooh.
We have seen that shot 8 times before in other episodes.
All I know is that since the experiment, I have not been sure of myself. I have grown aware of the evil that we have done, and I'm determined to end it. I will not try to persuade them.
Jano has
That
another
source is
plan.
working his bonds loose.
How did you know, Doctor?
I think it's like mine.
Suddenly, X-Force wriggles free of his bonds and makes a dash for freedom. Steven fires at him, but X-Force dodges past him and out into the darkness.
Well, someone actually got to dodge. Should have killed him. That's what that guy's thinking.
What we have done to them is wrong. If you will not destroy all this, then I must.
Jano picks up a heavy bar, raises it in the air, smashes a panel, Tor grabs Senta, and restrains him.
Help me, you
They all start smashing the equipment. That must have cost quite a bit.
We're not using this set ever again. It's a shame we don't get to watch. This is all in recons. This sounds like they were all having fun.
There's something very satisfying. Destroying something that's evil, don't you think?
Watch out, she'll smack you on the head.
We need someone like yourself as a mediator until we have become one people.
I see, but in my case, I'm afraid that is utterly impossible.
The man we need must inspire trust. His judgments must come from his heart, even more than his head.
There is the leader we want, Jano.
This is what I
We're not
thought.
leaving Stephen here.
For many light years, we looked forward to your arrival on this planet. We always knew of your wisdom, but we never
Light
dreamed
year
of
isn't
the
a
miracle
time,
that
it's
it
a
would bring
distance.
Thank you, Jano. Goodbye, Doctor. Goodbye, Stephen. And good luck. We mustn't look back.
I guess this is a better ending than he was going to have a few episodes back. Well, it's better than Troy. We can at least say that. Not much better, but
Again, I mean, they set up his leaving when they first picked up Dodo, and that was, 7 or 8 weeks ago, according to the timelines here. But, again, that's rather shocking.
yeah. That was... Yeah, so this is Serial 9. That was Serial 5 when he was originally going to leave.
All right.
So
we had 4 of the Ark, 4 of the Toymaker, 4 of the Gunfighters, and these 4. So 16 episodes.
Yeah.
So 4 months and he's out.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess, yeah, it is better than, him leaving in anger at the end of the massacre, but this seems like the most random place you could have left him.
But he is interested in justice. I mean, one of the things that he said about the doctor was, you could have helped those people and you chose not to. And now he's going to get the opportunity, kind of like Susan, get an opportunity to help these people rebuild their world. And he is from the future, so it's not like, dropping off a 20th century Ian and Barbara in the middle of something like this. Although that would have been interesting.
Well, and it also seems interesting because this is, unlike Susan and Vicky, there's not a person that they're really leaving him with. It's just, we're leaving him with these people, and he's going to make sure they unite into one people. And it's like, but with Susan, she had David in Dalek Invasion of Earth, and then Vicky had the one guy in Troy. So it's like... Troilus, yeah. So that was interesting. And also just because this didn't... There was no build-up to that either. Stephen was just sort of there in this episode. He really didn't do that much. And then it's like, oh, we're leaving him here. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, there was nothing from Chal or Nanina or anyone, really, that would have let them put their faith in Stephen, other than the doctor saying, this is the man that you need. And now, again, if somewhere in this episode, probably in the first episode, if the doctor had mentioned, you almost left us before, and have you rethought that? And he could say, well, I've rethought that. But just, again, something to hint at the end of this, he might say, you know what, this is an opportunity, and I'll get off here.
Yeah, it's a very random place. Now, I guess, when we left Vicky, that was also kind of out of the blue. I guess she had been developing a relationship with Troilus, but over the span of one episode, really. And then suddenly it's like, oh, we're just going to leave her here, and off we go. And it's like, okay, that was pretty sudden, but I feel like this was even more sudden,
and again, they did set it up with the end of the Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve, that he was ready to go. Yeah. But now, again, this is literally 16 weeks later, and suddenly, out of nowhere, it comes back, and we're like, oh, so he does decide that he's going to stay behind.
Yeah, after all this time. Which, I mean, I don't exactly know, which companions are around when the Doctor does regenerate, but, I mean, again, we're getting very, very close to it now.
We're
so
in the next 12.
Yeah.
Because we get 4 of the War Machine, 4 of the Smugglers, and then 4 of 10th Planet, and then Hartnell's out.
Yeah. So I'm not even sure. So it might be that like the next male companion is going to be the one that's there when he regenerates. But I don't even know if Dodo is there. So we might be leaving her, that very quick companion, there.
Yeah.
So it's also interesting that the past 2 companions that we have lost now, not counting Katarina and Sarah Kingdom, although this does also apply to them if you count them, that we are now starting to lose companions in recon episodes for some reason. Although they really tried on this episode. They got as many of those 3-second clips as they could, which, I mean, like, it was good for, like, you know, seeing Steven and the Doctor shake hands, but that was, other than that, you really don't need those 3-second clips in there. They really add nothing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a very odd... It's just sort of out of the blue on this one. Yeah. It's like, oh, we're leaving Steven here. It's like, okay. Like, I could have even seen it, like, if they left him on the Ark, you know, with them. And it's like, that wouldn't have been great, but I could have seen that a bit more. And especially because that was coming right off of the massacre. Like, I could have understood that. So, okay.
So what else we got here?
Let's see. They never really explained how the Doctor was expected, like how they knew about the Doctor and stuff. Like, you know, we kind of joked at the beginning. It's like, oh, well, maybe because they never say the Doctor's like, oh, we expected the person from beyond time and everything. Like, we were kind of joking, maybe it's the monk. Like, that could be kind of funny, and they instead welcome in the Doctor.
Now, the Doctor did say he had been there before.
Yeah,
I seem to recall that. So they are expecting him, and they of course have lived obviously thousands of years because of the life force draining there. So I mean again, we're understanding it now as adults. I don't know that the average kid would have thought about that. So
yeah,
don't know that would have been as big a thing in the 1966 era as it would to us nowadays, going kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, it would also be interesting if, like, maybe their people have met a future version of the Doctor, and so he's just not to that point yet. So while it's the first time he's meeting them, they have met him before. So could have been that. The life force energy was an interesting idea. Just the fact that it's like, you know, and again, that could be like subtle hints, like trying to establish regeneration early, because I feel like, considering how close we are, I imagine this would be around the time the higher-ups are starting to think about that sort of thing, and like how, well, especially too because we had like the Celestial Toymaker where they were going to try to swap out Hartnell. Yeah. So maybe they're trying to think like, okay, how could we do this a bit more naturally? Maybe someone comes up with regeneration, or I think it's actually called rejuvenation at first. But it could be that this is sort of like planting a little bit of like early knowledge, like, oh yeah, you know, renew yourself with life force energy. Like, it could be a subtle hint at that's coming up. So granted, none of the kids would have gotten that, yeah. But maybe looking back, they could have been like, oh yeah, maybe this is like with in the Savages episode. So and obviously we had the Savages, again, kind of on the nose with some of that, especially, you know, when they say like, oh, take him back to the reserve, which, crappy reserve, you just got him living in caves. But I mean,
but again, I thought that was pretty good, is that they lead you to believe that they are literally, you know, primitive cavemen living in caves, but when you go inside the cave, you realize that, again, it's very similar to what the Europeans ultimately found out, is that, you know, the Aztecs and the Mayans and the Olmecs and some of these other tribes had, even here in North America, the mound builders, the Mississippian culture, that they had technology that was equal to a lot of things, especially in North Africa and even in Mesopotamia and ancient Greece. Not quite that level of architecture, but the fact that at one time they were a thriving progressive civilization and had been reduced to reservations basically by the other people, in this case, supposedly Europeans.
Yeah. Let's see. They did try, or they did succeed at taking the Doctor's energy. Now, we thought at first that it could be that once they take your life force energy, then that actually starts to age you, even if you continue living, it horribly ages you. And we were also thinking okay, well, maybe that also leads into, like we were saying, it's the Doctor has been through a lot this season, to where it's no wonder he has to regenerate at some point, because he has really started to wear out his body. Especially, I guess, because you say, now that he's become more of the lead character, and I guess that could have started sometime after they left Ian and Barbara, because Ian was always sort of not exactly the lead character, but he was always the one doing stuff, and Steven does do stuff, but not as much as Ian used to do. So it could have been, it could be that because without Ian, the Doctor has had to step up, and that's putting him in more situations where it is really wearing out his body.
Yeah.
So, which, and I have to say, for, getting this far into Hartnell's run, I mean, he's still pulling it off really well. There's the occasional line flub, but it seems like everyone does that every so often, so it's not necessarily on him, but he's honestly still holding up pretty well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But let's see. Taking the Doctor's energy again, that was pretty interesting.
And again, the guy who was imitating Hartnell, the Jano character, did a very... because that first time I heard that, I was wondering if they had simply dubbed over Hartnell's voice, but then when you said it was probably the actor simply trying to imitate that, if he did, he was doing a really good job of it.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if, maybe he's seen past episodes, or... I guess that was by part 3 of this, so, he could have... seen enough of the Doctor's performance to imitate it. But, that was pretty good. It would make sense if he had also seen previous episodes and tried to really study how Hartnell does that. Yeah. There was also a part of me that was thinking, I was like, okay, well, what if they were originally thinking, okay, maybe this guy becomes the Doctor and then he goes off and, that's how they replace Hartnell. It's like, I think I'm reading way too much into that now. I think the Celestial Toy Makers got me thinking too much about that.
And I was really kind of thrown off because they were the thing with X-Horse, the guard who had been captured. It seemed to be that they were showing him, that they were trustworthy and that they were good people and they had consciences. And yet when he went back, it's like, nope, I can't accept that. And he turns out to be, a complete jackass.
Well, and we also had, the one scientist who was objecting to taking the Doctor's energy, but then that all just sort of went away. I was like, oh, maybe he'll be like an ally, because this is when he realizes that what they're doing is wrong, and that's not how that happened.
Yeah. By the way, this is going to be weird. I had just a momentary flashback to The Princess Bride. Do you remember? Now, of course, The Princess Bride would have been 20 or 25 years after this, but the book came out, and in the book, when Humperdinck's scientist hooks up Wesley to the machine and sucks away a year of his life, and that sort of thing, it just was very similar to that you're literally taking the life force out of somebody. And even in the film and in the book, after Wesley goes through that, he's completely limp for a couple of days before they finally get him back on his feet.
Yeah, that's true. Now, it's interesting that the Doctor sort of just recovered just on his own. For everyone else, they had to, give the tablets to help the one guy.
But didn't Stephen say to Dodo, get him inside, give him some of the tablets? And she said something like, what are you talking about? Like the ones we gave the other guy. And she said, oh, okay, I thought I heard him say to Dodo, give him a couple of the tablets.
All right, maybe I missed that line. So, it would kind of make sense if the Doctor was able to recover from that a bit faster just because of his own anatomy, but that would make sense, honestly. Yeah. And why they didn't go back to the TARDIS, I don't know, because Stephen did have a key to it, so yeah, I'm not sure.
Let's hope he got the key back.
Yeah, I hope so.
The key back right there.
Yeah. Let's see. We had the mirror, using the mirror against the gun. I was kind of wondering, because it's like, oh, okay, so they brought back the mirror that Dodo was given so that they could use it on the light gun. And I was like, what did Steven get? Could that come back? And I didn't remember what Steven got.
No, but also she's been carrying that mirror this entire time. That seems kind of odd that.
Yeah.
All the stuff that she went through, and she's got a gigantic hand mirror hidden somewhere on her.
I mean, even if she has pockets, I don't know if a pocket could hold that, No. So,
but yeah, again, flashback to Perseus and Medusa. Perseus is sent in to get the head of Medusa so that he can stop the Kraken, at least according to the movie. And the inside of his shield is polished, so what he does is he holds up the shield and he sees Medusa coming towards him, so he doesn't have to look directly at her. And as she gets close up, he simply swings around and cuts her head off that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, as the X-Force got closer, put up the mirror and flash it back on him and cause him to freeze up.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting because I guess the whole thing with their light guns is that there's a light, and then there's the actual ray that goes through the light. So you could just shine the light and it's just a normal light. And then there's the actual ray part, which captures the person. Because I was thinking when they first showed it, it's like, that is a huge gun. Like, you don't need a gun that large. But I think that's what they were trying to go for. Yeah. So
probably had to make it that big because it probably had like a 12-volt flashlight or torch in it. So.
Maybe. Let's see. This is also a very interesting way of we have to teach, right and wrong to these people and show their mistakes. And the Doctor doesn't even do that he doesn't mean to do that. It just sort of happens that it's they take his energy. And I guess once they start taking his energy, he just knows this is going to influence whoever gets this, and then from there he figures out that Jano would be the one to do it because he doesn't want to risk anyone else. So
I'm trying to think if in the mid '60s there was any kind of specific incidents. I know that I want to say it's Rhodesia. One of the British colonies in Africa was breaking away at this time and trying to switch over from European rule to Native African rule. There were probably issues with the Aborigines in Australia. So again, although you and I think that this is possibly linked to the Native Americans, and there was a surge of Native American independence in this time. I think the American Indian movement started during the mid-'60s. But again, I wonder if this is just really, rather than us fixating on the natives, if this is more of an incident that is that was put into Ian, whatever his name was, the author, because of what was happening in Africa or in Australia, and it just happened to also incorporate the native stuff. Yeah.
It could be. It could be sort of similar to that. This also reminds me with the Doctor influencing Jano. There's actually a future Doctor Who episode with the 10th Doctor where it's a Dalek episode where they're trying to create human Daleks. They took a bunch of humans in 1930s New York, and they're trying to alter them so that they behave like Daleks and they'll be an army. And then the Doctor, basically the way they have to do it is to get enough energy, they have to have lightning strike the Empire State Building so that it will strike all these people and sort of Frankenstein them into human Daleks. Not the point. But the thing is that the Doctor gets in the way of the lightning strike, and so that actually sends a bit of Time Lord into those human Daleks, and sort of they pretty much create a contradiction, and they're not the same army that the Daleks wanted. Yeah. It does sort of remind me of that. So yeah.
And I'm trying to think, who would this Jano character be based on? Because the stuff that was happening in South Africa with F.W. de Klerk and some of the others, along with Nelson Mandela, that was much later on. So again, my memory of politics during this time, I don't know, can't remember who the British Prime Minister was. I think this may have been Macmillan. I can't remember who followed Harold Macmillan. But again, the idea that we need a mediator of some kind to go in there, it does sound vaguely familiar, although I can't put a name or a face to it.
Yeah. Let's see. It is unfortunate that we were not able to watch them smash that lab because
Didn't seem to go on forever.
Yeah, it sounds like just because that went on for like 45 seconds, maybe a minute. Sounds like they were probably having a lot of fun. Yeah. Like, we have the budget to spare, boom, and they just broke the whole set.
May have actually, what would have been fun is hire some of the stagehands who built it as the extras in that scene to let them tear it down.
Maybe that.
But again, I noticed that in the clip where it was that they got the actual bit of Dodo, she swung like twice. And as she was starting back on the third one, Hartnell turned and was almost behind her, and I almost thought, good Lord, she's going to hit him in the head, and that'll be the end of it.
Yeah, hit him. Wow, that's the next part into his regeneration. We should have, started writing down, every sort of, injury or everything that the Doctor has sustained over this season, just to figure out, every last thing that is contributing to his first regeneration. So... And of course, we're watching this knowing that he's going to regenerate soon. So we can sort of take these things like losing his life force energy or, when he was aging in the Daleks' master plan. We can take all these into account as to why he is regenerating. But back then, no one's thinking about that.
It doesn't strike me. I don't seem to remember at all that there was any hint that this was going to happen, And we watched the thing, the Adventure in Time and Space. I don't think Sidney Newman wanted it to be well known. It just, suddenly it was there. It happened.
Yeah, it does. It does make me think, because obviously now, doctors are announced, well in advance, and of course, obviously, once they're announced, that the current actor is about to leave. But it does make me wonder, how much was said. Even slightly before, maybe before the 10th planet, the last episode here, just before that started airing, they announced Patrick Troughton's taking over or something. I'm curious, or did they keep it quiet right until that episode went out? And it's oh, well, there you go.
It's out. When James Earl Jones, he was originally given the script to Empire Strikes Back, and that scene with Mark Hamill there at the end, that was not his original line. It wasn't until they were getting ready to film it that they said, now here's what you're going to say. And he went back, Luke, I am your father. No, this can't be right.
Yeah, because they even said, because they had to obviously tell it to Mark Hamill too, and it's okay, now the guy in the suit, he's going to say this line. That's not his actual line. You need to play off this line that he's not saying, just imagine he said that and play off that line. So, and I think it was wasn't it 5 people in the entire production of Empire? Only 5 people knew the actual twist. Because I remember there's a clip of Mark Hamill. I don't remember what talk show it was, but he was talking about that. And at the premiere of Empire, Harrison Ford turns to him and is like, "You didn't tell me that. Come on." So. So yeah, I would be curious if anyone really, if there was any news or anything about Troughton taking over. So, I mean, if not, if nobody really knew that does have to be pretty strange for the kids, when suddenly it just changes into another actor, as strange as I'm sure it's going to be for whatever companions are still here. So, and then the last thing I wrote down is just, we have left Steven here in maybe one of the weirder places to leave him. It's okay, with Susan, okay, yeah, this whole place is sort of ruined by the Dalek invasion and everything, but okay, I can see, staying here with the rest of the humans and rebuilding, okay, I can get that. Ian and Barbara probably have got it best out of everyone because they were able to get back to their time. Yeah. And then Vicky, that was just a weird, let's leave her in Troy. Okay, we can do that if you want. And then Steven, and it's okay, well, I thought we were going with the massacre where he just, walks off in anger. And it's okay, well, yeah, that's sad, but that is very, different from everyone else. That's an interesting sort of way of doing that. And it's no, we're keeping him on. I guess just so that there is someone there to help the new companion, to help Dodo. And then it's and we're going to leave him here in an episode where the most he has done is shout for people and shoot people. It's like, okay.
Again, to me, the story arc makes sense because he did feel that the Doctor should be able to not specifically interfere, but to make sure that things like the massacre don't happen. So we know that he's got this sense of justice.
Yeah.
We know that leaving him behind in London, where they picked up Dodo, would have been wrong because this is a guy from 2,000 years in the future. No. So to leave him here, that certainly makes perfect sense in that way. And but again, it's been 16 weeks since he.
Yeah, is anyone going to think about that now? It's like people have probably forgotten that Stephen was just going to walk off in anger,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it does seem very odd. Again, it's not as odd as leaving Vicky and Troy. That was probably the most random. It's like like you said, it's like, okay, well, we could leave Stephen in the 60s, but that would be kind of weird. He's like from 2,000 years in the future. So instead, let's have Vicky be in Troy, which is like 5,000 years in her past. And it's like, okay, you can do that. And I still love when people pointed out, it's like, I hope she can learn Latin or Greek or whichever they speak. Probably Greek now that I think about it. Because the TARDIS isn't going to be translating for her anymore.
Yeah.
So,
but again, with her multiple degrees, because she was from the future, I'm sure that she could pick that up very quickly, or probably invent some kind of translator.
Yeah. Out of like twigs and leaves and someone's shield.
What did they call it? Probably 10, 12 years ago, I remember reading a story about someone found an actual ancient Greek machine called the Antikytherium. And it was supposedly so far beyond whatever kind of mechanics the Greeks should have known about at this time. So, we're assuming that at some point she would figure out a way to fit in because, again, being the smartest person literally on the planet at that time, she would have figured out some way to blend in and to help the Greeks then become the Etruscans or the Romans or whoever ultimately they became.
Yeah, could be. Well, I guess that's that. Okay. Next week, we have, a complete serial, first of all.
Yay.
But also the Season 3 finale for the longest season we've had so far at 10 serials. Although, technically, because we've also had this before where, the first 2 serials of the season were technically made with the previous season, so technically it's a season finale, and technically the 10th Planet is the actual season finale. Yeah. But we will be moving on to that one, and again, we will play copyright roulette, and we will see if that one will need a highlight or not.
Come on, YouTube. Give us a break.
I'm very curious to see if this one was able to work, and the Gunfighters, because I haven't edited that yet. I should probably do that sometime. So, that's pretty much that. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch more of our Doctor Who classic reactions, you can click on the playlist, you can subscribe if you haven't done that already, and be sure you hit that notification bell. You can support me on Patreon and follow me on social media, links below in the description. See you guys later.